This is the Impressions Exchange Podcast.
Impressions Exchange Podcast.
Where all topics impacting the graphic imaging and printing industry are addressed via in-depth news coverage, analysis, and timely interviews.
Hi, I'm Denise Gustavson, the Editorial Director for NAPCO Media and the guest host for this special Printing Impressions podcast series in celebration of Women's History Month, highlighting women in the printing industry. Now, during this series, I'll have the opportunity to talk with women from all segments of the industry about their experiences and their journey as a woman in the printing industry. So today, it's my pleasure to welcome Laura Lawton, President of Lawton Printing Services. So Laura, welcome.
Thank you, Denise. Happy to be here.
I am pleased to have you here. So just to get us started, can you tell us a little bit about your current company and your role there?
Absolutely. So Lawton Printing is a fourth generation family-owned business started by my great-grandfather and has transitioned through the years to we are currently digital printing only. And it's been really a fun journey the last 4 or 5 years as we've made this switch from offset to digital. So lots of mailing, we do websites, we do all kinds of different things, but, kind of rely heavily on our background of print.
Awesome. So, obviously you're the president now, but you didn't start that way. At least I don't think so. So how did you first get started in printing?
Well, as most kids whose parents have a business, you grew up working here as a teenager. So I did everything from typing on a typewriter to working in the bindery, gluing folders, to on and on and on, all the different after school summer jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And then as an 18-year-old whose dad was pushing me to go to Cal Poly, and one of his college friends was there running the department. I did the opposite and ran away and went to the University of Denver for 2 years, always knowing I was going to be in business in some capacity. But after 2 years of school and skiing and having a great time in Denver, decided to transfer to Cal Poly. So ended up graduating from their graphic communication department and came back home and started in customer service here at Lawton Printing and have just grown steadily through the years. The plan from the family was you had to work in lots of different departments and you had to earn your way into your positions. So did that and became president in 2001 and took over ownership of the business in 2008.
Wow, awesome. Now, I guess for you, it is different because you fourth generation. So, printing is in your blood.
Yes.
So, was there even an option for you not to be in the printing industry?
Of course, there was an option. My family was very open to whatever I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's what I knew and it's what I enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So it made sense. You always look back and think, you could have done things differently. And the only thing I would do differently than my journey is it would have been great to go work somewhere else first and bring that knowledge back to the company. But I found other ways to gather knowledge. So it all has worked out well.
Obviously, you guys are doing really, really well. So I guess my question is, through that journey that you've had, you've had many different positions. Is there anything that's really helped you, or is there anyone that's really helped you to get where you are today?
So I've had some great mentors throughout my journey. We had a consultant that we worked with, both my dad, my uncle, we all worked with them together. And he was really a great cheerleader for me. My family's been a great cheerleader for me. And I'm currently working with a business coach who's also been really great along the way. I've also had, mentors just in my friendship circle. One of them ran the association here in the Northwest, and she was a great guide, mentor, girlfriend, pick your words, to help me along the way. So I've been really lucky to have lots of different people involved in what I do and getting me to be better at what I do.
And that support system is amazing. And it's awesome, especially when, you have different people to turn to you for different things.
Right.
So it's not just one person, but you really can gain the experience of a village in a way, as you're learning and as you're growing in your roles.
For sure. I would agree with that. It's been wonderful.
Now, obviously you are a woman in a male dominated world.
Yeah.
especially for printing. So how has it been when have you had to choose between a family and your career? Is that something that really is a hard choice for women still today that you're finding?
I know that it is. I was quite blessed in that I came back to Spokane and I have family around me. So when I had my children who are about to turn 27 and 25, I had a lot of help.
Hmm.
My now ex-husband his job was quite flexible, so he was very hands-on. I had my mother, I had my grandmother, so I had a village there too, helping me be able to do what I need to do work wise and take care of the kids. And my job was always flexible. That family comes first. I mean, really, it does. But work comes first. So it's I juggled. There's no doubt. But it was also important for me to show my kids that they come first, but sometimes work has to come first because this is what affords us our lifestyle. So we definitely did a lot of juggling.
Hmm.
But I was blessed. I know that a lot of women have to make some hard choices, and it can definitely be hard. And the price of daycare these days is insane, and so it's not easy.
Yeah. And I've spoken with some women that are also single parents. So trying to raise, a family, being a single parent and juggling a career as well,
Right.
without that support system, like you said, without that family, without that support system, it almost becomes impossible. And it would
I would
become
agree.
impossible for anybody in that situation, male or female, you
I would
know.
agree. I would wholeheartedly agree. Yes. So again, I was a lucky one. There's no doubt.
Yes, definitely so. Now, again, there's also stereotypes. You were a working mom. You're working at the business, you're a working mom.
Yeah.
How do you approach, or did you even have to deal with those kind of stereotypes? Or even there's a stereotype that assertive women, they can be thought of very poorly,
Right.
we won't use the other word for it, but
We
they can
won't
be
use
thought
that
of
word.
poorly in certain instances. Is that something you've ever, had to deal with, maybe not within your company, but even within some of the people that you've worked for outside of the company?
Right. So there's definitely all kinds of stereotypes. And it's funny that we're doing this podcast today because last week I was down at Cal Poly. I'm on their advisory board and speaking to students and just, hearing what's happening in the department, giving feedback on kind of what the workplace needs, things like that. And there's a very big focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion right now, which is
Mhm.
great. And that department is 85% female now. When I went to school there, it was the opposite,
I can imagine.
absolutely the
Yeah.
opposite. So, talking to them about some of the things I experienced in my career, in my career here at Lawton Printing, again, I've been lucky. I've got good employees. I worked with good employees coming up the ranks, so I didn't have the same stereotypes. But when you get out and go to trade shows, when you get out and deal with some other clients, I was very involved in the National Association. I was one of very few women. So there were all kinds of things you ran into there. And I have always taken the approach of, you know, yep, I'm assertive and yep, I'm going to make fun of it. Rather, you guys think it's this, but I'm this, and I'm just going to own it. And here we go. So I kind of do it with humor to get
Hmm.
past it and move on. That's my takeaway, and I don't take it all too seriously because it's helping people learn and helping people not be ignorant anymore is a nice way of approaching it.
Definitely. Now, women, like you said, I mean, they're unique. Definitely. Men and women are very, very different, how they approach things, how they view things. What is it that makes women such a good fit for the printing industry? What kind of characteristics or traits that really lends themselves to succeeding within this industry?
So I've worked with a lot of women, a lot of men in my business, and right now it just happens to be that most of my office staff is women in sales and customer service, and most of the men who work here are IT production, things like that. It hasn't always been that way, and I think either gender can bring a great perspective to what's going on. You find that women are at times a bit more collaborative, and they think differently. Maybe they think a little outside the box. Not that men don't, please don't get me wrong, but
No, I agree.
you find different trains of thought, and they look at things from a different perspective. Maybe it's because they're a mother, maybe it's because they're a caretaker to their elderly parents, maybe it's all of those things.
Hmm.
And men approach things from a different direction. So what's been great for me is to be able to have, a good amount of both, and that we all collaborate, we all brainstorm together. So you're getting all kinds of different opinions and viewpoints, because it's kind of what your experience has been and was what you bring to the table. And that has been great. So love working with all of my employees, but it's good to have a great mix, so you're getting all the viewpoints.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, it's not like we're trying to bash men at all with
No,
this,
no, no, no.
they come at it with just, they think very differently. I mean, even in how we approach things. I mean, my husband and I are very different in our temperament.
Mhm.
He tends to be very direct.
Yes.
That's just him. I mean, I've had women that I've known that also are very direct, but
Correct.
that mix, like you said, really helps to be able to attack a problem or a situation from different angles, because you might
Absolutely.
not have thought of something that somebody else would have.
Absolutely. And I preach that here a bunch. It's like, I don't have all the answers.
Mhm.
I really, really don't. So I want to hear from everybody. And so it's that collaborative nature that I think makes things work way better.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously you've hired these people to do a job. So they
Yeah.
know their job. They know what they're doing. So to
Yes.
get that opinions that, you don't have to have all the answers. That's why you have such a really good group of people around you.
Exactly. Exactly. I agree.
And I love learning every day from, the people that I work with. I'm sure you're very, very similar.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I love it. I love learning. Mhm.
Now, you are a woman in a leadership role. You're the owner and the president of a printing establishment. How important is it to have women in positions of leadership, like you, like other women across the industry? I mean, there's a bunch of them that own print shops. Why is it
Absolutely.
important to have, women in those positions?
I think it's important to have diversity everywhere.
Mhm.
Again, we get a little, if you just have the same, you get a little siloed, you don't have the creativity, all of that. So you need to have women, you need to have, men, you need to have all kinds of people in leadership positions. That way you don't get so siloed, so stuck.
Mhm.
I think one of the things the printing industry struggles with is our identity, and how we portray what we do, who we are, because we are so diverse, and because we're thought of as, kind of old school craftsmen, all of those things. Those are not bad things necessarily, but we're so much more than that. So I really think it's important to have all kinds of people in leadership positions to show the diverse nature of the industry and what we do.
Then that begs the question is, how can we get a better public image of the printing industry so that way we can bring in more women,
Right.
more of everyone?
Everyone. And we had this conversation just last week at Cal Poly, and I feel like I've had this discussion for 20 years.
It's the
It is,
$100,000 question. I mean, especially
it
now.
it is. And I think because, and we have less printing companies than we did in 2008 and in 2012, but each printing company is so diverse, and there's less independent printing companies now than big conglomerations, but they still are, and it's hard to get us all on one track and
Mhm.
behind one movement, because our associations have consolidated and not gone by the wayside. I don't mean to say that, but they're not as strong and prevalent as they were. And so it's hard to get a major campaign like a Got Milk campaign for
Mhm.
the printing industry. So, and we all communicate different things and in different ways. But we did just talk about, wouldn't it be cool to, because there's been a campaign like this before, but it's been a while, to one of those a day without print, and then to kind of show what would happen if print didn't exist, and blank newspapers and no labels on things in the grocery store, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is there something we can all get behind to really push forward? Okay,
Mhm.
really, we're not a dirty industry. Really, we're not a male-dominated industry as much anymore. Really, we are a diverse industry, and we cover all kinds of things, not just ink on paper.
Mhm.
So you are right. That is the $64,000 question, and I don't have that answer. I wish I did.
I think everybody wishes we did, trying to figure out, what's the best way to go about it. Because I mean, it's been a struggle. I mean, you're probably, the same thing
Oh,
that we're seeing across the industry for the last few years is finding and retaining good people.
good people. Yes.
And, nobody wakes up in the morning. Most people, I will say, don't wake up in the morning and say, I want to be a printer, especially when they're 5 years old and they're
No,
running around in their, superhero costume or their fireman or their police uniform.
no, I think you're exactly right. Yeah, and I really wish there was a clear answer on that one.
Mhm. I think we all need to get our heads together and figure out how we can do that a little bit better.
That would be lovely. I would agree.
So now, my last question to you is, what advice would you give to women that are just starting out? So, I mean, you were just down at, Cal Poly, what
Yeah.
kind of advice do you give to women that are looking to the printing industry as a career?
So, in the people I talked to while I was there, I mean, this is a great industry, and there are so many varied jobs that you can get and enter into the industry. Um, you know, it's so hard because I came at it from such a different way because I knew what
Mhm.
my path was. But go out, try some things out. And I hate to say that because I'm an employer and I don't want anyone to try me out, but you know what I mean. You try out some different positions.
Summer
Figure out,
internship,
yeah,
something.
summer internships. Figure out what you think would be a good fit to get started, and don't let I gave them two different examples of times where it floored me that somebody said I couldn't do something because I was a woman. And I just went, what? And so just don't let that happen. Just, push, you can do anything. And there's so many opportunities, from, like I said, customer service. And then you've got graphics, and then you've got, user experiences and on, and all the technology that is coming that will benefit our industry is just crazy. Any of the AR, VR, all of that stuff is super cool. But then you'd start looking at the AI and what you can start learning from that and how you can put that into a campaign and for your clients. I mean, it's just the opportunities are endless. So,
Mhm.
just kind of tune out some of the noise is what I would say, and help the industry grow and realize the value of what we all bring to it, no matter what your gender is or non-gender. We've got to be open to everything.
Mhm. 'Cause like we said, I mean, the industry is diverse. It always has been diverse. But, now I think there's just a bigger push to make sure that we stay that way and that we can broaden. Um,
Yes.
because everybody brings, like we said, everybody brings a slightly different experience, a different background.
Mhm.
And those ideas can bring such very, especially to new campaigns, a new
Oh,
perspective, you know, can bring something that will just catch on. I mean, and then of course your customers are going to be a whole lot happier.
oh, absolutely. What we do is so creative. We've gotten out of the craft stage, but we've kept the creativity of the craft
Mhm.
in our businesses and in our what we bring to the table. So it's the opportunities are endless. It's exciting.
Awesome. Well, Laura, thank you for taking some time today to chat with me. I really appreciate it. And yes, thank you again.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed doing this.
Thank you for joining us today for this episode of our special podcast series in celebration of Women's History Month. Be sure to check out the rest of the interviews and stories we'll be highlighting throughout the month of March.